Hello everybody, my name is Louis and welcome back to Flickering Myth. Today we'll be taking a look at the gory top-down twin-stick beat-em-up Redeemer, developed by Sabaka Studios and published by Gambitious Digital Entertainment. So Redeemer has you take on the role of Vasily, an elite operative now turned monk who resides in a monastery deep inside the mountains. For 20 years you tried to find peace and forget your murderous past, but the corporation is now closing in on your position, and in doing so have given you one last shot at redemption. So the game starts off with a really nicely done animated cutscene. Not what I was expecting because I'd seen a cinematic trailer for the game a week before which looked rather tasty. But I feel that this kind of storytelling snapshot cutscene fits in with the atmosphere of the game. And you can tell just by looking at the dark colours and bold lines that you're about to see blood. After getting the backstory of Vasily, you're thrown into the first level, and the graphics are pretty fantastic. Even though it's a top down, you really get the sense of depth, and the reflection of the wet stone caught my eye instantly. That's even before I noticed that Vasily was actually wearing a pair of Converse shoes. Throughout this level, you have a number of handy tutorials on the multiple ways you can murder your enemies. Punch, kick, throw buckets, rocks, burn, saw, neck snap, shoot, hit with an electrified stick and break their backs, so just to name a few. And to accompany these creative kills is this great zoom feature that you can see in more detail your gruesome handiwork. The combat in Redeemer is great. Some sites have labelled it as Diablo 3 meets Mortal Kombat, but it's more Hotline Miami meets the Batman Arkham series fighting mechanic. You can mix up your punching kicks to pull off combos, use a variety of melee weapons, shoot guns, and use the environment to take out enemies. You can also block and parry. This will be your best friend when fighting groups of bad guys. Some of the bigger enemies can break your block with an attack, so cue your combat roll and get out of the way. My technique early on was to take out the smaller enemies with hand to hand, then finish off the big guys with a weapon, or the one punch and run technique if you find yourself with nothing sharp and pointy to hit them with. Redeemer has a good roster of enemies, from military grunts that you can mow down in seconds to giant mutants that like to throw up in your face. You can't just run into a group of enemies and start spamming the punch button. You really need to plan your assault when involving more than 3 enemies, or you're going to be overwhelmed pretty quickly. I'll say it now, Redeemer is tough, and you'll be pressing that restart button a fair few times. Sometimes to die is the only real strategy to learn what lies ahead of you, but that doesn't make the game any less fun. It adds a good level of strategy into your encounters. Level design in the Redeemer is awesome, especially the first level. Wandering around the monastery with its twisty steps, the attention to detail is pretty astonishing, but that seemed to disappear in the next level. During the monastery, I loved the anachronism of seeing guns in this medieval-esque setting. A monk fighting a load of tech soldiers with nothing but his bare hands was a really cool concept. But go to level 2 and you're in a high-tech laboratory fighting basically zombies, and it seems kind of off. I'm all for seeing contrast in levels, but this just didn't feel right and it took a while for me to adjust. Good portions of the level felt like copy and paste jobs, similar looking rooms with the same door mechanic to go through. It was saved though by the introduction to different environmental kills and weapons. The table saw is a personal favourite. Sounds are pretty good, punch and kicks feel heavy and guns feel authentic. The voice of Vasily however is great in the cutscenes, true audiobook material. Music is pretty absent apart from the heavy metal during boss fights or big room battles. It suddenly felt like I was playing a top down version of Doom, and that's not a bad thing at all. There are some points where the game could improve. The mechanics are simple and straightforward, hack and slash. But I would love to have seen a level system, perks or skill points, the ability to unlock new moves and combos, more weapons, just something other than moving from room to room beating the same enemy over and over. Also more music. Music and violence go hand in hand. Although like I said there had been some up-tempo heavy metal during some parts, but more music to fit the mood would have been nice. But more importantly, there's an issue with some of the performance. During the laboratory level, FPS drops down into the 40s on a system that exceeds the recommended system requirements. After a bit of experimenting, it turns out that the shadows were the culprit. Lowering the shadow settings should see the issue fixed, but an issue that shouldn't really need fixing. Onto controls. Redeemer is obviously a twin stick, so a controller is definitely ideal. I played through the first level with both a controller and a mouse and keyboard. Aiming is a lot easier with a mouse, but movement is much more fluid with a controller, so best to try both and see what best suits you. In terms of button layout, everything is where it should be, no dodgy controls that are easy to forget apart from the dismember action, but a few practices should get that imprinted into your brain. Story then, Redeemer is pretty short. If you're soundly familiar with twin sticks, you could finish the game in about 5 hours, and in terms of replayability, your only other option is to try it on a harder difficulty, or check out its arena mode, which is essentially a horde game type. Throughout the game, there are scrolls to collect, and the game comes with a glossary for people who are interested in the lore. The story isn't great either, enough to keep you pressing forward, but nothing that will fully immerse you. Finishing off Redeemer then, and honestly, I can definitely recommend it. A few people have told me that the combat is pretty repetitive, but it's up to you to mix it up a little. Charge those kicks, impale enemies on trees and lure them into traps. Get creative and you'll enjoy your experience much more. Here at Flickering Myth, Redeemer is a 6.5 out of 10. Easily a 7 if the performance issues are fixed. So as always, thank you very much for watching, don't forget to subscribe to Flickering Myth for future content, and I'll see you all next time.